And I'm inviting right now Sonke from the next panel to invite his panelists to talk about the future of data security in VR. We touched base on security in the blockchain era. Right now, we want to shed some light on the security and privacy issues that occur in VR. Welcome, guys.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for the nice introduction. Yeah, my name is Sonke Kirschoff. I'm CEO of InVR Space. I'm not going too much into detail because the panel is about something different than my company, but just in a nutshell, I'm running a company that is specialized on VR. So we are, of course, focusing on all these topics as well. And it was super interesting to just listen to the panel before, because the topic was already scratched, and I see the topic is kind of everywhere. As far as I heard, one of our panelists, Jaka Repanšek, will not be with us due to an emergency, which is kind of a shame because he's a lawyer, and I assume he could have anyway, but he could have added a lot to this topic. But let me introduce the other panelists, which are Zoltán, Tűndik, and I'm not 100% sure if I already see Martin Stoefler from OSM Solutions. Oh yeah, there he is, wonderful. So perhaps I can pass the mic over to Martin first to introduce him and OSM in a nutshell.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, wonderful.
Perfect.
I hear you.
Thank you very much. Too bad that we are alone today. I would have really liked our other guest input since we have had our pre-talk yesterday, and it sounded very interesting with what he was talking about with the legislation, but what can you do? Yeah, so thank you very much, Zoltán and Hipther, and for invitation to my first, if you believe it, my very first online panel. Very nice. I'm a co-founder of OSM Solutions. We are an Austrian-based IT security and compliance company. Some of the participants today might have seen me before on one of Zoltán's in-person meetings a few years back. We are working quite a bit with the gaming and gambling industry, but these days we are also very much into other startup industries. We are helping a big company in Germany, for example, at the moment, just getting security into their 35 million investment, and yeah. So we are all about data security, about compliance, ISO, all the gaming compliance standards, those kinds of things.
So you're dealing with data security since a while, that's what I assume, right?
Yes, absolutely. So I personally since north of 20 years, and my co-founders the same, and our employees a bit less, but we're very specialized in that area, yes.
Wonderful. Let's go deeper into that after Zoltán. Perhaps, do you want to say a little word about you as well, or do we assume everybody knows you anyway because you're co-founder of Hipther?
Thank you, Martin. Sonke, yeah, my name is Zoltán Tűndik. For those of you that don't know me, I'm co-founder of Hipther agency. We started about 14 years ago in the gambling industry as affiliates. After that, we went into B2B. After that, we started also covering technology industries such as blockchain, artificial intelligence, and fintech, among others. Now we cover around 24 industries. Hipther agency is just the umbrella brand for all the websites and events we organize. So happy to have you here, Martin. It's really interesting to see that this is your first virtual panel, given the fact that we have been doing this for 2 years now. And yeah, it's the last time we saw each other in person was in Prague in 2019 when we launched this tech conference series, which has now, I think that this 14th edition or something like that. Some of them virtual, some of them in person. And yeah, that's about it. If you want to check out our agency, just head over to hipther.agency or download our news app from Android store. Just search for Hipther and you can find it. It's like you said, it's too bad that we don't have Jaka here for the legal perspective, but I think we can fill in the spot based on our conversation, our pre-discussion of this panel. So that's it. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. And I have to say, funny that there are so many dots to connect, because actually on short notice, I went to Prague today. So I'm just now in Prague and not in Berlin. So as you just said, you met in Prague years before. So seems to be a place to go. Yeah, Martin, assuming that the topic, as you said, the topic is something that you're scratching since a while. I'm wondering, because now in this talk, we have the topic about VR, of course. Is it something that changed during the last 2 or 3 years with a huge pace, or went into a completely different direction? Or is it something you would say, from your perspective, talking about games, perhaps about online games as well, I don't know how deep you are in that field, that it's more like a linear thing and VR is just one tent pole that adds to it, but doesn't change too much?
Interesting question. I would say, I think that VR is going to be a much bigger thing. And like we talked in our pre-call, there's going to be a lot of new data points and a lot of new things to consider. In general, I would say, since we come OSM and we come from the gambling side, we are very much used to external regulations, to sort of investigative approaches by governments, by regulators, to make sure that the customers, the players are not tricked, that they are treated fairly, that they receive their funds and whatnot. So, and this trend has just been going up the last years, or last, say, 12, 15 years, I don't know. And I don't see any end to it. Picking up from what Pradeep said before in the panel before, he said that legislation for blockchain is coming within the next, I think he said 2 to 5 years or something like that. And I very much believe that too. I feel and I see in the markets, in the industries that we are in, and that's quite a few as OSM, we see a real big push to bring out more legislations, to regulating the markets, to regulating technology, which is obviously in and of itself quite complicated. Yeah? And I've since we had the pre-talk, I've been thinking a bit about what specific is interesting in the VR area and what could be specific problems. And I think that one of the big things that we will have to find a solution for is accountability. Because if you take, for example, a platform, right? You have a VR platform where people can do sort of stuff. The beginning is going to be very, very easy, very, very basic stuff. People can meet, they can talk, they can, I don't know, maybe play a game or whatever. But very soon this will evolve because people want more. They want, I don't know, buy a new skin or buy whatever, or they want to tip somebody or what have you. I'm not a game designer, so my expertise in this area is quite limited. But I believe that this will bring on additional third-party suppliers to each of the for the popular platforms. And that, for example, I see with one of our customers right now. They have a great product. They do a lot on security. They bring in all the information security management system framework to make sure that they handle the data in an appropriate way, that they store it in an appropriate way, that they have all the processes in place for their customers to actually be GDPR compliant and come and say, okay, I want to know which data you have of me. I want you to remove it, and so on and so on. But what they are facing now is, I think, what those platforms are going to be facing, the fact that they are bringing in third-party content providers or content creators, and with that, a raft of new security and data privacy issues, obviously, because at some point, because now the legislator is saying the platform is responsible for everything. Now, that is theoretically possible for a gigantic company like Facebook, or Meta, how it's called now. But in reality, what you're doing is that you are sort of closing off the market to smaller companies, because I can never become such a platform if this is the ground rules that I have to adhere to. So nobody is going to take that kind of money on such a gamble of starting a completely from scratch platform. I think that's going to be problematic. What will happen is what drove the online gambling industry and the gamblers to licensees at Malta, at Gibraltar and whatnot, the fact that there will be countries that say, okay, we will grant you a license for this and that, and you can go do your business, versus very well regulated markets that say, if you don't do this type, this stuff, we can't let you operate. So I think that's going to be a bit of a challenge to everybody involved.
Definitely, I can say from my own perspective as well that we, as a small medium company, we have to care about all these rules and regulations, and we have to keep track of what is new, what is announced, what will be new, so we can already deal with it. But of course, it's super hard to do so if we don't have a dozen of lawyers as employees in our company who do that for us. So the one thing is to do it time-wise, and then the other thing is, of course, to do it budget-wise. But you already pointed out that there are these big players. You already pointed out Facebook or Meta. I think there is something happening that is kind of a monopoly on data sets. Like Meta is one of these players, and people like governments are trying to avoid that they are getting too much data sets through all the companies they're owning now. But the same is happening with Microsoft, that are acquiring game companies for billions of dollars, or ByteDance, the company behind TikTok, just acquired, if you're going back to VR, and in general, just acquired Pico, a headset manufacturer from China. So is this something that we are facing as a new issue as well, that it's not like only a lot of data collected and people have to be aware of that, but that it's monopolized in these huge companies that can really and that's, my question comes a little bit as well from the talk we heard before, that sometimes you struggle with the companies you're talking to, you don't know which kind of data set they have, and the data that they need to have to talk properly to you seems not to be available. And on the other side, they have a huge amount of data set that seems to be somewhere in their company and nobody knows how they use it. Is that right?
Completely agree. Completely agree. It's a huge problem, I think, and it will become bigger and bigger. I think what a lot of companies, especially if they don't really want to go into the area of hoarding data and actually using this data in a meaningful way, except for their own marketing purposes or whatever, is that they sort of abstract it. Mm-hmm. So while they collect a lot of data, it might not be able, or they might not be able to actually go from an abstract data point back to you as an individual. Yeah? So that, I think, is a problem. The other thing is, of course, that you're absolutely right. Data sets are being monopolized. I do sincerely not see how we can work against that, mm-hmm. because it's natural as a company like Meta to sort of grow into other areas and other industries. And of course, there are watchdogs in Europe, there are watchdogs in the US and whatnot, that if a company gets too big, they force them to break them up. But mm-hmm. realistically speaking, of course, there is going to be a much closer contact and much closer data sharing going on between those broken up companies than with the outside, so to say. Simply because they share their stockholder group, and they share very often also their board or parts of their board and whatnot. So I think that's a problematic thing, absolutely, and I think it's hindering the growth of the market in a way, because smaller companies have a very hard time. And what the big players are doing, like in every other industry, is that if somebody comes up with a great innovative idea, they wait a little bit, they see if it's feasible, and then they swoop in and buy this company. Mm-hmm. Of course, you can't fault the founders, because I mean, if somebody comes to me and tells me, okay, I give you 100 mil for OSM solutions, I say, put it there, man. And that's cool, yeah. But of course, that's not ideal for the customer or for the individuals using the platforms or using the services. But right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think there's also another thing to take into consideration, and we touched upon this very shortly in our pre-call. You mentioned the fact that you, as a medium-sized company or as an entrepreneur, mm-hmm. you sometimes or very often don't really want the data that you actually get. I've been thinking about that a little bit. It's been rattling around because that brings up a very interesting point, that in order for security to function properly in a technical environment, we need something that's that some people call a SIEM, a security incident event management, or some logging, those kinds of things. We need to know what's going on. And in order to provide proper security to the platform or to the service that we're offering, we need certain data points that actually are sort of very personal data points, your IP address, for example, or the footprint of your browser or what have you. There are loads of things that can enhance the security and almost feel intrusive to somebody looking from an external view, and could prompt somebody to ask, why are you collecting all this data? And I can, with a clear conscience, say it's for security, it's for your security, it's for your neighbor's security, or a neighbor in terms of the platform,
right?
And
control neighbor,
and so there's the other thing, that there are valuable data sets being produced that a lot of companies not necessarily want to produce. I think the question is it morally problematic or problematic for this type of company then to go ahead and say, well, you know what, we have this data, why not just make some money out of it? And where to put the stop? Also, it's complicated, I think. Yeah. And
definitely, yeah.
Sorry.
I want to move to the aspect of fake avatars, fake names, and so on later. But perhaps give Zoltán the chance as well to hear his take on that. What's your opinion, Zoltán, on the monopoly of data sets and?
Well, if privacy dies in VR, it dies in real life, right? So basically, either way we put it, our privacy, the data privacy, is either way jeopardized by just creating an account anywhere. So like Martin said, if a company comes to you and tells you that they want to buy your company for 100 million, you just sell it. But there is also some type of rules in the cookie compliance rules and GDPR stuff where you can opt that if the company is sold, that you do not accept that your data to be sold as well with that transaction. So yeah, with VR, it's a different thing because you have all this technology tracking eye motion, where just doing a search online. I don't know if the technology really exists. Maybe Sonke, you can tell me more about it. But there is this type of a thing called iris scan or iris analysis, where you can define the level of energy of somebody just based on their iris. This would also give the opportunity for that platform to start selling vitamins or supplements. So it's all about selling. So all the data is processed and used for marketing purposes. And like I told you in our pre-call, that I will be the devil's advocate over here. So we are just kidding ourselves when we think that big tech is really being forced to do the things they do not like to do. Sharing data and stuff like that. Like Martin says, there's that rule that you need to break up a company not to become too big. But this is already done by third-party companies, which are mostly owned by the same corporate divisions. So digital footprints are either way everywhere. We're leaving them everywhere. Digital fingerprints as well. I don't know if there's a universal solution to this, but back I remember when GDPR was launched and we were forced to move all our data from the servers from New York to Amsterdam, given the fact that we're a European company, we needed to host the data here. It took us 72 hours to move all that data just to be compliant, and nobody gives a shit about it. Excuse my language. And I see all these GDPR rules being forced upon us, smaller, medium-sized companies, and somehow the governments are not complying with it. And all those who need to comply, who own the big data, who have all these chunks of big data, do not comply. And I don't think we I think we saw only 1 or 2 penalties during the 4 years since GDPR is live. And that's
not
it.
the exact amount, but it was very few, yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think there are any type of proceedings to any company to check up on what they're doing in terms of GDPR. Mm-hmm. But we needed to do, and we as we own multiple websites, we needed to comply with the rules, with the cookie acceptance and stuff like that. We needed to, we actually really reprogrammed all the stuff on the servers to be compliant. And for what? For somebody just to click OK and accept the cookies?
True. Well, that's a fact that most of the people are very used to this cookie question in the browser and just click OK. Or if there's an option of don't accept any, perhaps sometimes they click don't accept any. But that's a funny thing because I recognize that a lot of people are getting used to that. But as we are talking about the future of data security in VR, and you already scratched this with the iris question, for example, there's a lot of more data to collect in VR that people are very unconscious about or not really recognizing it or giving it away for the sake of being able to use VR properly. Like, for example, that some headsets already use the functionality of tracking your eye movement. Of course, it gives a lot of benefits because you can have this how's it called, foveated focus. Like you can focus with the renderings on the area where you really look at and not at everything else. So you can really like have a crisper image in the area where you look at. But of course, at the same time, you can analyze where people are looking at. And that's something that we already know that happened with public commercials on the streets. And people didn't like that idea that they might be tracked and people will recognize if you look into the face of the model or somewhere else on the body, and that you can manipulate the commercials, that it fits much better to you as a customer in a way, but manipulates on the other hand. So this is doable in VR as well. And we are just in the very beginning of that. It's just the tip of the iceberg in a way. But that's only one aspect. We talked about this as well in the pre-call, that very few people discuss or are aware that what we appreciate with this inside-out tracking, that we have mobile headsets now, like the Oculus Quest, or the Pico headsets as well. So we don't have MetaQuest, exactly, or as well the HTC headsets have the same. There's cameras inside that do an inside-out tracking, which means that all the time when you are in VR, you see something in VR that is not what the cameras in the headset see in reality, which means they are constantly filming your living room, your whatever environment where you are sitting in, and they are even seeing if people pass by that are not even aware that they are filmed in that moment, and maybe the data is sent somewhere and analyzed, even if these companies claim that they are not analyzing it and that it would be too much data. It's interesting to see how people have been or assume they are aware of this topic nowadays, because everybody heard about cookies and about spam mails and so on. And they look twice sometimes when they click on a link in a mail, but they seem not to be that aware about what extra data is collected nowadays, specifically in VR.
And just sorry to interrupt you.
You have to interrupt.
In regards to this data sharing, it's funny. Like if you fill out a survey of what kind of potato you are, you are basically giving away data from your account from that company we don't like to speak of. A lot of data, because we that we also have the social media platform WireUp, where we had the opportunity to use Facebook as a login option, but I didn't like the data which we would have gained access to. So I don't want to have that on my conscience. So basically all these API connections with the accounts are giving you a lot of information which you basically would not need, but some might exploit it. And as you said, in terms of the VR headset that has these cameras outside, I don't know how they sold it to the regulators, because it's most probably they sold it in terms that it's for your own protection, because you do not bump into the furniture in the living room and stuff like that. You can draw up that safety space. But yeah, everything has been used against us for our own protection. But where are we getting it with it?
That's a question. And I mean, I just have to add from a person from Germany, we cannot purchase Meta headsets in Germany since the Quest 2 is out because of exactly for that reason, because it needs to be connected to a Meta account, and the German data privacy officers said that's not going to happen, or this has to be clarified first. And so, of course, Meta said, okay, we don't need to clarify that. In that case, we don't sell them because it's a very small market anyway for us.
So we get back to the thing I was telling you about big tech, because you do not have the option to opt out for some of the stuff. You either accept everything or you do not use that. Or you
find the way how to purchase it in France and import on your own through Amazon that is selling them through France or Denmark to Germany, because they don't have to care about this at all because they are not the manufacturer. So that's the interesting point, that the vendors in between don't even have to care about these rules then, because they are not on the one or on the other side.
I remember when Martin was having a presentation in 2019 about the Internet of Things and everything, how everything is connected. I remember when he was telling the audience about the fact that might be in the future the smart light bulb might be hacked.
Lights on, light off while...
exactly. So now you have VR, you have even more access to data. You have everything is tracked. So
while you're in the headset, you will not even recognize if people hacked your light bulb. Right? But Martin, I want to ask you as well. Do you have the feeling that people? I don't know how close you are to the user's side, and not only to the. I assume you are mostly in the B2B side, and not in the B2C side, and not talking to the clients too much. But do you have a feeling, or do you get any feedback from your clients or partners on how the users deal with that? Are they completely like they don't care, or is it a critical aspect for the business partners from yours that they have to care about that much more because their clients are running away or using fake accounts that make them like not real?
Yeah, very good question. I don't have numbers per se, but I can tell you, since we also work a little bit with getting all the processes in place for our big customers for GDPR and those kinds of things, and they are actively used. So I think that the end users are actually really taking a bit of charge. Of course, not the generation of our parents, but our generation and younger people, they very much are aware of their rights, at least on a basic level. And they are also aware of I think more than we realize. Maybe this is Europe-centric, but I don't know. But for example, I also know that it's quite well known that Facebook is bleeding customers and bleeding users. And I think I don't talk to young people on a daily basis, but when I talk to some of our younger employees, 25, 27, this area, they are, all of them, they are not on Facebook. They're very, very conscious. I mean, that might now be a bit confirmation bias because they're in an IT security role, but in general, I think that this generation and they are very much aware of what they should be provided, what their rights are, and they are not afraid to voice their grievances. So that's a really, really big plus, I think. So, because people, this generations, they really literally grew up with the internet, and as a necessity, either you get smart or you get eaten, I think.
Let's not kid ourselves. It's not just about Facebook.
Oh, no, absolutely. Yeah, no, sorry. There's no Facebook bashing here in general. It's just...
No, it's not just about Facebook. It's the other companies doing the same thing.
Absolutely, completely agree. But just maybe back to the original topic a little bit. So I was thinking a bit about the VR and about the aspects, and I also found it super interesting what you brought up with those additional sensors and the additional data points. And I think what we will see in the future, in if this VR thing actually really takes off, I'm still not 100% convinced, to be honest with you. I think it's very, very good for certain things to do, like a meeting or whatever. But I'm not sure how big it's going to get. But if it's really going to take off, yeah, and of course, first I would see it in a professional setting, simply because companies pay for money for services like that, and we have this work from home culture that's emerging out of the pandemic and whatnot, and there you have a few challenges, right? So in a normal office setting, I'm expected to dress well. I'm expected to be recognizable. Just to get into the door. Otherwise, people will, in a good security company, they will ask me, who are you? What are you doing here? How will this be done in, for example, business meetings? Yeah? Because, I can hijack a computer, a laptop, if I have the right motivation and the right financial means, I can hijack almost any laptop in the world, yeah? I would say. So then, okay, we need face pictures for my avatar, because otherwise it's going to look really weird if I sit in a room with 5 executives and they all have, I don't know, one has a transformer as a face, the other has an anime character. That's not going to work out in a professional setting, right?
Right.
So now this platform provider already has my name, my position, my face picture, probably a 3D scan if you're being real here. They have my iris scan. They have my living room. That's a lot of data about me. And if you then think it a little bit further, industrial espionage has always been a thing. It has been a thing since in the IT sector, since the IT sector has been invented, so to say. Now, what would stop somebody from I don't know, bribing somebody with the right access to get a listen into the, I don't know, to the board of directors meeting shortly before the next stock move or whatever, So there's industry espionage. Then I think the scammers are going to come. If this VR thingy really sees mass adoption, which I think is still absolutely lacking, but if that comes, we will have our standard scammers, Yeah. And there again, we come in with the face scans and whatnot. So if a scammer manages, for example, to hijack the laptop of Peter from down the street, and he for whatever reason, maybe it's in the calendar, he sees that Peter has a weekly call with his grandma, and luckily he also speaks a little bit of German, the scammer, so that's fine, that works out. Then he will just go in, lock Peter out, go in and talk with his grandma saying, oh, sorry, my voice is a bit hoarse because I don't know, I have a cold or whatever. And I need 5,000 euros really, really urgently because whatever, who is going to die? I don't know. Yeah. So scammers definitely are going to be a thing. And then, of course, the companies. What do they do with all those data points? So data privacy in VR, I think an excellent topic, a bit too big, maybe for 45 minutes.
Yeah, that's true.
Because I could keep going here, and I think it's going to be a really, really interesting technical problem, but also I think a more of a general populace problem. Like, what do we do with it as humans?
Well, I'm happy to continue this in another edition of this. It's up to Zoltán and Alex, of course, to decide on that. But more than happy, and I think the topic is ongoing anyway, so we can talk about this again and again. I have one question that I wanted to ask. It's more like the pirate perspective on that. But perhaps at the same time, if there's any questions that someone would put in the chat, I'm happy to pick up on that as well. Like in the gaming industry, people normally used fake names, for example. And I know a lot of people who used fake names in Facebook as well until they recognized, well, it makes more sense to use a social network with my real name because I want to connect with my friends and they don't find me there, or they don't accept my invite if they don't see my real name and I don't have my real picture. But with newer technology, I mean, you can generate digital humans that look like totally realistic. So you don't have this issue of what you just said. You put a honeybee, a picture of an animation film character in there. You can put a picture that looks like totally human, even better than human in a way. So perfect skin and so on, and the bird is perfect in shape and so on. So wouldn't it be or is it already a critical aspect for these major players that there is a lot of data dirt in the data sets as well that has to be found, that has to be identified? And because otherwise, if we are talking about machine learning and artificial intelligence, if they are fed all the time with this data that is partially fake data, might it happen that the whole data sets that are collected are totally, completely full with dirt, and that perhaps a clever audience, a clever gaming community could do that on purpose to completely mess up the data sets that are existing in a way? I mean, it's not only like giving you a fake name, you can give yourself a clever fake name. The other way around, I know from a research facility in Germany, they trained artificial intelligence for a while, and they gave this example in presentations, so it's public known. I don't talk about secrets. They trained artificial intelligence with data sets of images they took from the internet, different things like blonde woman or a horse. And after a while, they recognized that the artificial intelligence is super good in identifying horses in pictures, and they wondered how that could happen because a horse was always looking different. And after a while, I think, and the while was not a week, it was like 9 months or over a year, they identified that they took all the pictures from the horses from a database where they had a small watermark on the lower corner. So the artificial intelligence didn't learn about the horses in the picture, they learned about the watermark. And that's what I'm saying with, isn't there a lot of dirt in the data sets as well? And couldn't that be done on purpose? And are there already like good mechanisms? I don't know if you know about this, but that was something that I wanted to speak about, even if the time is short.
It's a fantastic thought. I really like it. Of course, security through obscurity and obfuscation has also been around for a while. And while I don't know the realities as they are in the market right now, unfortunately, because I don't really work with big data in any meaningful capacity. But I'm 100% sure if you wanted to do that, you could definitely do it. I think that those companies that have this vast amount of data, they are actually at this point already quite good at filtering out, like maybe not all the garbage data, but data that is put there on purpose. Yeah, because it's remarkable when you look at big data that. Real data actually, it's hard to fake. You know what I mean?
Right.
And especially if you really want to fake it, you can, of course. But then I think also this could be a small community that's doing that for whatever reason they want to. But I think knowing customers and knowing people in general, people are lazy. You know, one might install a tool that does the data obfuscation for me, but even if you give away this tool, how many people are realistically going to install it? 5%, 2%? I don't know.
And they forget about deleting the cookies, so they spread the real data on top of that. So still, right.
Yeah. So plus, at some point, I think these companies and platforms will use certain data points to actually enhance authorization and authentication. So once you start faking those data points, like for example, in the gambling industry that has been around quite a bit, where they do device footprinting, fingerprinting, whatever you want to call it, in order to enhance the chance or probability that it's actually you using your account. Because otherwise, if somebody hijacks your account and they lose a lot of money, then they have to reimburse you because it was sort of their fault, right? And I think faking this on a consistent level is also going to be a technical challenge. And if nobody's going to get paid for that, nobody's going to do the work of constant updating, constant maintaining this application. Yeah. So it's a cool idea, and I'm pretty sure that it's going to be done. Not sure how much of a meaningful input it will have.
We'll see.
But in general, you're absolutely right. The companies have a huge problem already with the sheer amount of data, and they have a problem with knowing what data do I have to keep and archive and keep for regulatory purposes? What kind of data do I want to for a business purposes? What kind of data should we can look at it later, and what kind of data do I want to or have to throw away? Already that is especially in established platforms, in completely new startup, that's a different story. It's much easier. But in established platforms, that's I say a Herculean task. I can tell you, it's not easy.
If you were the AI of a 2 billion user base company, you would be already smoking weed all day and being depressed by having all the data that is just garbage on your chunks of data. Yeah, I think that it would be a great topic for some of our next events. That does artificial intelligence need to comply with the rules to have access to data?
Mm-hmm.
Is it a different entity?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's food for thought.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I don't see any questions in the chat, but I see that Alex switched on his camera. And so I think we should pass over the mic to the next. I think there is another panel after us, right? So we shouldn't.
Yeah, that's correct. Thank you very much, guys. Sonke, Zoltán, Martin, thank you very much for taking our invitation and for this insightful panel. As you said, VR is not going anywhere, so talks and discussions about privacy and data in VR are going to be a permanent topic. So yeah, we can elaborate this in our next edition and maybe in next year and some years after. We see how this evolves.